Next, on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
The other shadow side that I'll see is people have a tremendous amount of clarity, but they're not taking action, right? They keep asking the same questions. They keep having the same level of knowing, but they're not moving forward in whatever direction that might be, whether it's, with their relationship, with their health, with their business.
Actively searching for their next future ex-wives. It's The Nice Guys on Business. Oh yeah, they know how to treat the ladies. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
So Nice Guy Community, known at the last New Media Summit as Doug's future third ex-wife, but more formally known as host of the Intuitive Wisdom for Modern Transformation podcast. Is that really the name of the podcast? It's a long name for a podcast.
It is a long name. I was trying to fit too much information in there.
So we're going to talk a little bit about overwhelm and what that means as well. Dr. Morgan Oates shares the best of what he's learned as a doctor, a transformational speaker, a high-performance coach, a shamanic practitioner, and as a student of life. He's definitely a gifted visionary with a holistic view. Morgan actually inspires audiences and clients to develop and trust their intuition, integrate their life wisdom, and to cultivate the courage to live a life of inspired action. So, Nice Guy Community, if you are ready to live your top life and live Morgan's goals, this is the place for you to be, to take you from where you are now to where your mind, body, and spirit are calling you to be. Here to make this official, possibly putting a ring on it today. Welcome, Morgan, to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
It's going to be a good show when you're having to stifle laughter during the intro. So yes, it's. I'm excited for our future, Doug, and excited for the conversation today as well.
How did we even get to the point where I made a comment? Nice Guy Community. I'm the guy that MCs a lot of the New Media Summit programs that go on. So I'm behind the turntables with a microphone in my hand, which is always challenging when I have 200 people that I'm trying to entertain. How did I say, or what happened to get you named my future third ex-wife?
I'll tell you, well, in general, for anybody that doesn't know how funny you are, I mean, the whole weekend at New Media Summit, you're just killing the jokes and so interactive. And I was getting ready to be introduced on stage and you just went on a tangent and we just rolled with it the rest of the weekend.
And so many people just are not, they don't kind of cheer up to the jokes sometimes, they don't like the brunt of it, but you completely leaned into it. And that was perfect. So thank you for being the spot of humor in a, not an otherwise dull program. It's a great program. It's just that what's interesting is that, you take a typical business topic and you can really turn it into entertainment if you add a little bit of flair to it. And Steve's goal, Steve Olsher, he said, hey, your job is to just make sure everybody rides along with us and gets entertained as I am educating them. I think it's a great way to learn and it's a great way to inspire people as well.
Yeah, keep people entertained. And obviously humor is an easy muscle for you to flex. So yeah, totally. Made the event even more amazing.
Yeah, thanks, Morgan. I appreciate you rolling with the punches there. So I want to get out of the gate right here and just talk about this 6 keys to living your top life. One of the things that you are referring to on your website and one of the things that you are offering as an opt-in on your website, Nice Guy Community, you'll see why in just a little bit. Is there really such a thing as ever getting to the top of your top life, or aren't you always striving to continue that climb upward?
Yeah, I think it's a strive, and I think it's, everybody's at a different point on the spectrum, right? Some people are wanting to get away from pain and have life get better. And then a lot of people, and I think probably a lot of people that tune into your show, they're looking for that level of excellence. They're looking for that, 1 or 2% change in that certain area of their life that's going to make things even better. And I also believe you're either improving or you're either going up or you're in decline.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's real plateaus in life. And so if you're wanting continued excellence, you're probably always on that growth edge of what's next.
So I want to establish for our Nice Guy community why this is something that you feel, and I know that also the industry feels that you're an expert at, and why is it that you've leaned into this part of your zone of genius to try to share this gift that you have with the world at large. So first, maybe establish some level of credibility so I can share with my community, here's why I brought Morgan on the show. And then maybe we can talk about some of those 6 keys to living your top life.
Yeah. So I think probably two pieces of this. One is I pride myself in being a guy that's never settled, right? I started off as a mechanical engineer. It wasn't the right fit. I transitioned into chiropractic, which is already amazing. I added essentially physical therapy and neurolinguistic programming. And I was always looking for what's that next edge.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized in that office was if I get somebody's body very healthy and the rest of their life is a mess, life still isn't great for them. And along that path, I was also doing a lot of my own soul searching and personal growth, whether it was relationship, health, business, all those different areas. And so a lot of the training I had received and the things that really helped make a really positive impact in my life got me into doing, high performance coaching. I stepped into a lot of different areas. And then at a certain point, I was doing stand-up comedy on the weekends. I was kind of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So I was being a chiropractor during the week and doing stand-up comedy on the weekends. And it felt like just pulling all of that together into kind of my whole life would be great. So it turned into coaching, it turned into speaking. I'm still doing chiropractic, but I'm really blending all of those together. And so I think it's partially the path I've been on, as well as all the things I've, experienced and utilized to really improve and lift my life up is kind of the background of credibility and why I'm so passionate about it.
So before you go on though, when did you realize, and I always use this as the analogy, I really like cooking food, but I would never own a restaurant, it's really challenging to go through the entire business process. The difference between owning up to the fact that this is your thing. I mean, you have been not unsettled in a bad way, but you've continually strived to improve yourself, but then going on to be an expert in that and then sharing that expertise with other people and then actually developing a system around the entire thing. When did you discover that this was your zone of genius, not just for yourself, but to share your gift with other people as well?
Yeah, for that aspect of it, I don't think there was that like epiphany or that breakthrough moment. I think it's been a slow progress or progression where, somebody'd be on the table chiropractically and things would come up. Right. And I felt like if I had resources for people, even if it was outside of their health or out of chiropractic, honestly, it felt out of integrity to withhold anything that might positively impact them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think more of that just started coming into what I was doing. And then as far as like getting certified as a high performance coach, that's through Brendan Burchard. I've loved his work for a long time. I was at an event and I was really there wanting to learn more about speaking and kind of developing a thought leadership platform. And he offered the ability to get signed up for his world's greatest speaker training along with becoming a coach. And I was already doing a lot of mentoring. And I knew that having a really solid framework would help weave into that and help me take people to new levels. So it's been all these different steps and levels where I just would get further into it. And each time I stepped into it, I'm really passionate about it. I love it. And it's driving me to, just get better and better and doing more and more of it.
So let's take a dive into some of these key aspects to a better life. Can you maybe share some of the things that again, I look at podcasting. I'm a podcasting hammer. Everything looks like a podcasting nail to me. So I keep saying, okay, let's build community, let's build influence, and let's go make some money with a podcast. That comes easy to me. But people looking at that might say, I have no idea how to do any of those things, which come easy to me. What are those things that come easy to you that you can share as an action item for maybe one of the 6 keys to living your top life?
Yeah, and those kind of split out into two pieces. So let's look at 3 of them at once because it'll make more sense. So 3 of the 6 keys are clarity, courage, and inspired action, right? And if we make that even more simple, it's really about listening and stepping. And I think the risk for people is sometimes they've picked a location on the map years ago and they're still moving towards that, but they've stopped asking questions.
Got it.
Right? It's almost like a little kid when they're learning to walk and they're falling over. All they're doing is trying to keep up with the weight of their head. They're in the motion of crashing, but they're no longer making any lateral decisions, right? So I think we do that in life. So a lot of times it's about getting out of just action and hustle, and it's about asking those good questions again about what is it I'm actually wanting to be doing as I'm moving forward, and that would be searching after clarity. The other shadow side that I'll see is people have a tremendous amount of clarity, but they're not taking action, right? They keep asking the same questions, they keep having the same level of knowing, but they're not moving forward in whatever direction that might be, whether it's, with their relationship, with their health, with their business. And so, and then I feel like the bridge between that is it takes a lot of courage to start asking questions again if you're caught in a rut or you've been doing something for a long time. And it also takes a lot of courage once you have clarity to step in and take those inspired actions. So and so one of the action items that I share with people, usually if I share this, people have that, like, their shoulders will droop, their head might droop, they might let out a little bit of an audible gasp. Most of us know that area in life where either we're in hustle and we stopped asking questions, or we have the answers but we haven't taken the steps.
So I'm curious, Morgan, and again, just going back to your experience, pulling from that for just a moment, what are some of the, and especially as a doctor, I'm going to use some doctor terminology here. What are some of the symptoms that somebody might be experiencing when they realize that they have neither clarity nor courage, and especially that they're not taking inspired action? So any of those three things.
Yeah, it's the things that we hear about a lot. It might be lack of passion. We feel flatlined. We know what that looks like in business. We know what that looks like in relationship. We've got the same negative health thing that's been happening that we haven't done anything to actually change for the last few years. Those are ways it'll show up. I think, hustle's been a really big word, especially through Gary Vee in the last few years. And a lot of times we get caught in hustle, but we never step into flow. Right. And I love Roger James Hamilton shares that, life and business really should be more like surfing. You paddle hard to catch the wave, but at a certain point, you're catching the flow based on your work. So I think that's another sign. And honestly, for me in the last year, my symptoms showed up as overwhelm. Right. I was trying to do all these things because I have a chiropractic practice, and I have a speaking practice and a coaching practice, and I have a podcast. And I thought if I hired the right coach and had the right virtual business manager that I could just be Superman. And I finally realized that I I was overwhelmed. I didn't have any balance in my life. And the other thing is, I think, and this might be a horrible analogy, but on a certain level, there's these grapes that are growing in the fields of our life. And each grape has a certain amount of juice in it. And if you don't squeeze all of it out, you're not really creating the wine that you could. And I felt like I was moving through last year, hardly getting any juice out of any of the grapes in my life. And so my focus has been to get clarity about that, to really pull some things back so that each thing I do in my life, I'm really maximizing both the experience and the outcome of it.
What I love about the clarity, courage, and inspired action, nice guy community, as you're listening to what Morgan is saying, just keep in mind that without any one of those three things, it makes it very challenging. Without clarity, you can have all the courage and inspired action in the world, but you're going to just be busy doing something that you're not really clearly focused on where you're going. With clarity and inspired action and no courage, something that is knocking you off your pedestal will keep you down for an extended period of time. Without inspired action, you can be as clear and as brave as you want to be, but the challenge is, if you're not taking action, you're just going to be a guy that's on a mission but is not actually doing anything. So I really love that, and it really does fit into anybody's frame of mind or anybody's place where they are, whether it's professionally or personally. Do you find that this will work not only with business but in relationships as well?
Yeah, I think it works everywhere. As you and I both know, like the idea of like work-life balance or separation, I think it's a misnomer. It may not act, it's a bit of a unicorn. I don't know that it exists. And so there's a lot of times we know if our personal life's off, it affects business. If our business life is off, it affects our health. If our health is off, they're all tied together. And what I like about that framework and how it's shown up in my life is that the thing that needs the help it shows up on its own. Like most of the listeners right now, they may have an area in their life they're like, oh, this is where this applies to me. And I think, Doug, you and I are both about transformation and forward momentum. And so for everybody on the call, this is an exciting time to make a commitment to yourself where it's like, okay, the thing pinged, I know what it is, and it's 2020. Let's actually get this cleaned up and create momentum in whatever area of your life that applies. But it also can be kind of applied mechanically, like, okay, clarity, courage, inspired action, apply it to personal, apply it to business, apply it to relationship, apply it to health, and just use that as a way to go through and just see where things stand. Are they in balance? Are they not out in balance?
So maybe share with our nice guy community an action item that you would want them to take, not in the inspired action portion, but just in the idea of recognizing that this is where they potentially are and they have the symptom that you're recognizing. They may be slow, they may be lethargic, they may realize that the relationships or business ventures that they have are not going in the right direction. What would be an action item we could have them take aside from downloading the 6 keys to living your top life? But just so that they can start to see how easy it is to just get out of the day-to-day regular routine of what they're doing and start to take action towards improvement.
Yeah. Without knowing what symptom they're experiencing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay it out so it'll apply for everyone. So, whatever that area is, and, you know, if you don't know what that area is, just pick one, because if you did know, you would know. So dive into that area that's less good than all the other ones,
Hmm.
or that pain point, or the one that keeps you up at night. And then just use those three pieces, like, do I have clarity in this area? Do I know what my next steps are? How often am I seeking clarity in this area, or have I been on cruise control for a while? Just ask some clarity questions of yourself. Do I really know where I'm going? Do I really know what I'm doing? Do I know what makes me happy in this area of my life? Do I know what makes me not happy in this area of my life? And just gather pieces about clarity in that area. And then I think you can go to courage and go, okay, have I been courageous in this area? And a lot of times, and I know this is about business, but I think, how we do anything is how we do everything. Right. And so I think about relationships where, oh, things have been flatlined. They haven't been comfortable at home. Like, have I been having those courageous decisions about what's not being said? Are we having those courageous decisions about our future, or about how things are going with the kids, or, one of our health or both of our health patterns? You know, in that area that we're thinking about together right now, have I been courageous in the past? Am I being courageous now? And if 2020 was going to be the best year that I've ever experienced, what would I need to courageously do in this area of my life to make sure that I end up on December 31st in the best possible place?
It's interesting you brought up the December 31st. I don't really talk a lot about goals, visions, New Year's resolutions because I'm not a believer in a New Year's resolution. I think in an everyday intention is probably a better goal set. What's your feeling on that though? And again, feel free to disagree with me and say, hey, it's the best time of year. I always go by Abraham Lincoln's what's the best strategy, which is what's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago. When's the second best time is today. I always want people to be striving for their next best goal and their next best opportunity.
Yeah. You know what? I like putting a few different things out there, and I'll do a dream board because I want to capture some of the visuals and the feelings. And I know that, the visual piece is one of the fastest ways to transform the unconscious mind, that and like metaphor and story. So I'll bring that in. I like doing like goal setting of like, where would I, SMART goals, right? You can define them and time them and all of those pieces. Um, but I also like the day-to-day things. And I know that, let's say I'm out of shape and I really, last New Year's Eve I wasn't able to go on this hike with my family. Well, maybe that would be something I would make as an important thing for this New Year's Eve. And what do I need to do to get there? And maybe it's like, this week I'm just going to go on a 10-minute walk every day. So I think a number of different type of goal sets can help depending on how people are wired. And and also just looking at things realistically, like, if there's something you want to be experiencing 3 months from now, you probably should start today. It's probably not something you can pull off in the last 5 days. So yeah, so I tend to lean into all of them enough that I feel like it serves my purposes. And I know certain people really like certain ones over other ones, but I use a bit of all of them.
So tell me about maybe some time that you've experienced this on your own. I know you talked a little bit about overwhelm earlier, but how has this fit into, and these 6 ways fit into your life most exclusively or practically?
Yeah, I think courage has been the place. I think courage has been the place. I tend to take action. I tend to, well, like I said, I was in overwhelm, and I think in overwhelm, a lot of my actions weren't courageous. It was like I was trying to just keep up with the train that I had strapped myself to.
Hmm.
Um, and so I realized once I stopped the busyness and I opened up space to take some of those big steps, it was really about, okay, what are the courageous things that I can do? What are the things that, not the first 10 phone calls that are easy, but what's the one I've been avoiding for a few months? Right? What's the email request that I haven't sent? What's the speaking event that feels just outside of my grasp, but there's no reason that I can't actually just swing for it, because what's the worst they can do? Say no, right? Or not respond. So I think courage has been the place where, I do so much, it's easy for me to tell myself I'm courageous. But when I stopped and really looked at it, I didn't have time or wasn't creating or holding enough space to actually do the big courageous things in my life.
Yeah, I think that that's probably where most people they do their to-do list, but their goal list is not something that that is quite as definable as their to-do list. How do you feel about the difference between taking small steps or taking one big giant leap? Are you a small step kind of guy, or are you a, professional that likes to, without a net, take the large leap?
I do a little of both. I've always joked that I was the guy that would jump off the cliff and just assume the wings would form. Um, and sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes that's good. Like leaps of faith, if done properly, and if you're wired that way, work really well. I know that sometimes if it's like leaving a job and trying to start your own business or doing things like that, that level of like financial pressure can be really immobilizing for people. So I try to find ways that I can jump off of little cliffs that I've put in front of myself. And I also ultimately realize that the only way that anything happens, even the big things, is through that, smaller daily discipline type action. So I try to use the bigger leaps to drive momentum forward, knowing that I have to lean into the daily small disciplines to actually implement and create.
So, in addition to having the 6 keys to living your top life, I know that that Dr. Morgan Oakes is also offering a complimentary 30-minute coaching session. So, Morgan, why don't you share with our community what that looks like and who should be the ideal candidate to call? Because we don't want just everybody to pick up the phone or fill in that contact me form. So, who would it be as an ideal candidate?
Yeah, based on the conversation we've already had today, it might be somebody that really feels that place in their life where they're, stuck in clarity, stuck in courage, or stuck in inspired action. I had an epiphany about a little over a year ago. I was watching the movie Bohemian Rhapsody,
Uh huh.
and he's up in front of these stadiums full of people, and I love speaking in front of large groups. And so I'm like, oh my god, I want that. And the epiphany I had was, I may not be there yet, but I can create change, hundreds of people at a time through a podcast like this, and one at a time through these phone calls. And so I just set a goal to empower as many people as possible. And, sometimes we get on those calls and I recommend a book or a podcast episode or a YouTube video, and that might be it. And for some of those people, they want to move forward with coaching. But ultimately, my goal is that no matter what, when we get off the phone, and hopefully just like when we get off this podcast, that the people that have been here have been empowered in some way so that they can go out and step into their life in an improved way. So it's probably somebody wanting to level up their life. They're needing some support, and it may be business or personal, but they're knowing that it's time to do something different now than they've been doing in the past.
So I love the fact that you're working yourself out of overwhelm yourself, and that is also, keep in mind, nice guy community, that the best person for the task of helping heal where you are right now is someone that is studying that. Yes, that would be number one, but not the guy that's learned it in a lecture hall. It's instead the person that is actually learning it through their own experiences. So Morgan is definitely a valuable asset for you and a valuable resource for you to go to. So I highly encourage you to get over to his website, drmorganoakes.com. We'll make sure we put a link in the show notes for both the 6 keys to living your top life and for the complimentary 30-minute coaching session as well. What's next in your life, Morgan? Aside from us taking the trip down the aisle, what's coming next?
Well, I'm looking forward to that whenever it happens. That's it's on my dream board, so I'm sure it's on its way. And Yeah, this year, for all the other things I was doing, one of the things I had to get clear about is what I love is speaking. I love being on stage. I love empowering audiences. And so the plan for this year is to be on a lot more stages, to be, leaving that impact one to many just a lot more often. And that kind of feeds and fuels me. And then the rest of it, it just creates space for the rest of the stuff that I love. And I just vibrate through the rest of my life. So
Morgan, I so very much appreciate your message and sharing it with our community today. Thanks for being here. And I'd love to get some feedback from you when you do get some calls and those that have go through your program that are in our community. I'd love to get you back on and with the person's permission, actually come on and do a case study. If that's something that you're into, I would love it as well. I think that would be a great opportunity without giving too much insider information away about what the issues are that they're dealing with. Maybe get some of the clarity and work through that clarity, courage, and inspired action that someone took as their next step. Would that be something you'd be okay with?
You know what? That'd be great, Doug. I love the idea of that. And I think when other people hear somebody's story, it gives us, the rest of us a lot of permission to take those steps as well. So yeah, I'd love to share that with you.
Agreed. All right. So if you're in our community and you're feeling like the 6 keys to living your top life are for you and the session, and we've done this a couple of times successfully, very successfully. We had Mind Color, someone come on our show and actually do the same thing, and someone took advantage of it. Our Mind Flavors, and it was really a great follow up episode to it. So those in our community, please take a moment and definitely head over to drmorganoakes.com. We'll put a link in the show notes. Again, thanks, Morgan, for being on the show today.
Awesome, Doug. Really grateful to be here and looking forward to our big day.
Nice guy. Same as well. I'm on Pinterest right now looking for dresses. Nice guy community. Never underestimate the power of nice or wearing white the third time down the aisle. Special thanks to Dr. Morgan Oakes for being on the show today. All of his information, including access to his website, will be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, take us out of here.
For the nice guys on business, and in accordance with my court-mandated community service, I'm Steve O'Brien. Only 27 more voiceovers to go, and then maybe they'll let me leave the state and take this ankle bracelet off.